Hey, everybody, welcome. We're going to talk a little AAU tonight. And with the six schools that were invited yesterday to the AAU, we're going to talk a little bit what that means for them, what teams could possibly be on the move soon, and what Arizona State, what it means for the Pac 12, the ACC, and the Big 12. We got Tim, we got Will ND, and we got Tony tonight. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing great. Thanks, Jeff, for having me.
Good. It's an
All
exciting
right.
week. Thanks for having us.
It is. I mean, yesterday when I found out this news, it really did shock me. I mean, Notre Dame never wanted AAU. They never cared about AAU. It didn't mean nothing to them. So for them to request and get AAU, that's huge. And the other thing people talked about was Miami. Miami to me was a shock. I truly had Florida State ahead of Miami getting AAU status, and that didn't. And we'll talk a little bit later about what that means for Florida State. But as Tony has said many times, you look who got AAU yesterday, and then you look at who didn't get AAU yesterday. And it's kind of funny because there were some teams that we thought were ahead of Miami and Arizona State. So we'll start off with Notre Dame because that's the easy one. Notre Dame, they got AAU. Will, you're really happy about that, right?
Mixed emotions.
Now, everybody should agree that until yesterday, we didn't think Notre Dame needed AAU, right? Because we all figured the Big Ten was going to let them in whether they're AAU or not. So, do you think it is just because of the Big Ten that they joined AAU and they're going to spend that money?
I have a feeling that's the case, guys. I do, because Notre Dame always did, like, we always felt like we didn't need AAU, but now that we got it, I think it's that we're going to join the Big Ten. And like, in some ways, I'm happy we're joining the Big Ten, but it is kind of gonna not hurt. I don't think it's going to hurt the football team, but it's going to hurt our image a bit because we were like the lone wolf, but now we're just going to be with the pack.
You know, and I've heard rumblings, and I mentioned this to Tim earlier today, and me and Tony, I mentioned it to Tony. I heard some things that kind of shocked me in a way. I heard Notre Dame, first of all, is interested in going to the Big Ten, which shocks me because, you know, they've always wanted their independence. But the thing that shocked me was I heard Notre Dame had a school that they wanted to add to the Big Ten with them. And that school, believe it or not, was North Carolina. Now, everybody would have thought it was Stanford because they play all the time, and they don't play North Carolina that much. But from what I heard is Notre Dame kind of wanted North Carolina. And the Big Ten decided they would much rather have Miami because of market size, also a better product over the last, 30 years in football. And so it's funny that Notre Dame and Miami both all of a sudden got AAU.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing there is that FSU didn't. You and I just talked about that a little while ago. I thought it'd be great if they grabbed both Florida schools, Stanford and Notre Dame. I think that would be a hell of a pickup for the Big Ten, just all around for everything they want. I think that'd be a total Big Ten thing to do. But for reasons you gave to me, if you want to share them as far as the Florida State factor, you're thinking maybe they're not going to be picked up by the Big Ten.
Here's the thing with Florida State. And again, I might be wearing a tinfoil hat, but tell me if I'm wrong. With Notre Dame now getting AAU, that really does solidify that the Big Ten ain't going to take you without AAU. I mean, because if it was going to be done, Notre Dame would have done it. Now, Florida State is on the list to get AAU. And unfortunately, with what was decided yesterday, you can't really say, well, they're second on the list or third on the list, because with who they took yesterday, they didn't go down their own list. So with Florida State not getting it, that's telling me that the Big Ten didn't push hard enough for it, because if the Big Ten wanted a school to be AAU, they have 16 teams with USC and UCLA coming in. 15 of them are members. That's 15 votes. And you have USC who heads the AAU. So they would pull strings to get Florida State voted in if they really, really wanted them. So that's
remember, of the 10 board members, 6 of them are Big 10, Pac-12, SEC. I'm sorry, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC.
Right.
Because you have, well, and I mean, one's technically Big West, but you have 2 University of California, you got USC and Illinois, and then you've got Pitt and Duke. So if they were gonna, if you wanted the right time to be able to get Miami and Notre Dame in without any, I mean, Miami and Notre Dame are of course deserving, but if you wanted to get them over, over somebody who maybe is more deserving, this was the time to do it.
Exactly. And if they wanted Florida State, it would have happened.
Do you guys think that the reason they picked Miami is because Miami fits? I feel like Miami just culturally fits the Big Ten much more than Florida State. Do you guys think that's why? Or is it something else?
Well, think of the Big Ten. Think of the Big Ten. They want academics. Miami has academics. 2, they want market size. Of all the schools left out there, what market is bigger than Miami? Maybe Atlanta, but Georgia Tech is really not a school that's going to move the needle. So, I mean, it's Miami checks the box. So my thinking is, if Florida State is not AAU and they cannot get into the Big Ten, they're guaranteed into the SEC is what everybody says. But think about this. The SEC wants flagship schools and AAU. That's what we've got the last 30 years. Anytime we've added a team, and even further back, Tony will tell you, that's what we've added. So the first 2 choices the SEC has is North Carolina and Virginia. It's new footprints, flagship schools. And so if we only go to 18, that would leave Florida State out. If we go to 20, they might make it, because Clemson would be next on the list. They don't check the boxes of flagship schools or AAU, but
they're close.
The SEC is not going to go any further anywhere else. So there's no flagship school we can get. All the states we're already in.
So you guys, just we're clear. We think this is going to be AAU driven, even the SEC, meaning. So let's say the Big Ten. There's a lot of big ifs, right? Because we still have there's the grant of rights still in place for the ACC, but let's assume that the ACC in, like, I don't know, this is all about 5-6 years down the road where we're talking these numbers, and the buyout's a lot less, right, Tony? Anyone correct me if I'm totally wrong on that? I'm thinking every year that buyout, just like coaches, gets lower, or is that not true?
Well, there's 2 buyouts you have to worry about, and the one buyout does not get shorter, just because it's kind of like the Big 12 just signed that 99-year deal. So it costs just as much to get out of it today as it would in 50 years.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that one. I mean the grant of rights for the media.
Rights. The thing about the grant of rights that's funny is everybody says, well, it's a 13-year deal. But who's the grant of rights with? ESPN. So if ESPN pulls Miami out of the ACC and lets them into the Big Ten, what that does is it would hurt ESPN, because the Big Ten doesn't have ESPN in it. But what ESPN can say is, Big Ten, I can bring you Notre Dame and Miami. We want a small piece of your pie. And if they can make the same amount of money by moving that, and then moving Virginia and North Carolina into the SEC, the grant of rights only hurts the television market, and ESPN would be okay with that. That is why the Big 12, when that came down, they only forced the grant of rights. They said that was okay because ESPN was happy with Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC. So does
Okay.
that answer your question?
Yeah, well, I mean, my only question is just there's so many schools I think that move the needle for networks and are AAU, right? I don't think that schools like that you just named. I mean, I don't think that North Carolina is if you like, for instance, if you're an SEC guy, right? You're the president of Alabama. Do you really want to bring on another team that might be, that's not going to add to the value of your next media deal? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas the Big Ten wants to bring in schools like Miami and Notre Dame, which are going to move the needle.
Right.
So my question is we're assuming that Clemson and Florida State are not AAU. Are we saying that those are two schools I think that move the needle that the SEC could add that would add value to the television contract? Forget everything else. Forget the academic side of it. And I do understand what Tony's told us that they've never added a school that's not AAU. I get that. I'm wondering though, as things change, things went. The more and more I think the ESPN gets involved in this, the more and more the idea of you have to be AAU may or may not be the case. I don't know. I mean, Tony, you can shut me down really quick, but I'm thinking that we're moving closer and closer towards. You were even talking about conferences and stuff like that. I mean, the football really is the thing. The college football is the thing be really driving all of this pretty soon, and that's where and maybe.
Your issue for the Big Ten is that they have never not added. They've never added someone who wasn't AAU at the time they were added. Now, I mean, you go back to like World War II, and the AAU is like just the Ivy League and tiny, but in the modern era, that has been their standard. I guess the question, instead of like looking at it as a hypothetical of saying like, oh, does the AAU matter anymore, which is what a lot of people are doing, we should say, is there a team that the Big Ten would want who's not AAU? And I don't really see a team that I think the Big Ten would want anymore that's not AAU after today.
All right, Tim, we can't hear you.
Tim.
Hey, Tim, you're muted.
Tim.
How do I keep getting muted? That's weird. I'm not muting myself.
I don't know.
Anyway,
we didn't mute.
I've got no idea. StreamYard doesn't mute itself. My point is that I don't know. It's more of the situation with the SEC, because the options I think for the SEC, the ones that look really good for television and for football, are not, and most likely are not, going to be AAU.
Right, and that's why I think the first two teams on the SEC list is Virginia and North Carolina. And then after that, we can't have flagship schools anymore, or we could ask for AAU, but the schools in our footprint are narrowed down after that. And I think that's
to get beyond where the SEC footprint is now and look at flagship schools, you're looking at going West Virginia, going up, North Carolina, Virginia, Kansas, and then you start talking Arizona.
So, I mean, none of those schools are football. I mean, the closest would be West Virginia.
Now, I would argue, I think that you could probably make a case that, in all honesty, particularly for the SEC, they're not married to that. Like, that's just
right.
You look at what it is. Like, to the SEC, I mean, first of all, Virginia Tech, let me tell you who fans that are mad today that they did not get that AAU invite. Like, in Blacksburg, they are hot. So Virginia Tech, I would say, is a more than fantastic institution. So Virginia Tech, Clemson, Florida State are all, I believe they are institutionally fine for the SEC.
Right.
Should they want to go there? Should they decide that they want to continue in that in those markets and expand? I just don't know that they want to.
Well, and here's the other question that nobody has the answer to. Who says the Big Ten and the SEC has to have the same number of teams? I mean, because honestly, the Big Ten is in a better position than the SEC technically, because they could go after Stanford, Cal, Washington, Oregon. You know, you guys are now coast to coast, so you can go anywhere. The SEC, we boxed ourselves in the nice little bottom corner, so we're limited. But what's to say that, let's say, the SEC picks up 4 teams. And so the Big Ten picks up 4 teams. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? Oregon and Washington's out here on the corner. We want them too. Does the SEC have to have the same number of the Big Ten? Does the Big Ten have to have the same number as the SEC?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the SEC isn't really boxing the corner. I mean, with Texas and Oklahoma, that's not exactly the Southeast anymore. They've branched out, and right. Technically before Penn State, and then later on, adding Maryland, Rutgers, and Nebraska. Well, Nebraska's kind of close, but they were just in the Midwest. I don't think the geography is the big issue. I just don't think that Nick Saban or Kirby Smart are going to be flying out to Eugene anytime soon.
Right.
For home and home, that kind of stuff. So I wonder where this could go. Again, with the whole ACC granted rights, the ESPN, it's all going to be pretty interesting how all that shakes out and what can be done about that. Because we talked about last night, is it 7 or 8? How many schools need to break the ACC granted rights?
8.
So there aren't 8 homes.
Half of them, and there's 15 schools. So there aren't
8 spots in the Big Ten or the SEC, which would make it why it would leave the ACC. So that's not going to break up. So then that leaves, what's the buyout point where it makes sense? Now, the money that you're making in the Big Ten or the SEC would, make some of these gigantic numbers. People say, oh, there's no way they can go ahead $100 million. There's no way that, well, yeah, what's your break even? Considering you'd be making about, $30-40 million more a year. Why wouldn't you do that?
Well, and this is a bigger problem with the Big Ten than it is the SEC. And Tony will be able to tell you this better. Each conference now is at 16. And let's say the Big Ten and the SEC say, yeah, we want to get some more teams. The Big Ten really don't want to grab 4 at a time. Look at the headache they're having with USC and UCLA integrating their libraries and, getting the
scheduling and everything else.
Yeah, so
it's a lot.
At the most,
people don't realize how much work goes into it.
Right.
Because the other thing from a scheduling standpoint, and Jeff, forgive me because I haven't studied the SEC schedules. The Big Ten and the Pac-10 schedules are very integrated at all sports.
Right.
Like for example, like there are track meets and swimming meets and tennis matches and stuff like that. One of the differences with the Big 12, which is why they're able to bring schools in and move them out and sort of rebuild itself like Legos, is that they don't do that in most sports. So for example, if you have a swim team in the Big 12, there's no such thing as like Big 12 swimming season. It's just at the end of the year, there's just one swimming meet.
One meet. Yep.
And that's it. And
Tony,
so from that end, it's a lot easier to integrate somebody in and out.
Tony, at some point, do you think these big schools just break? I mean, I understand the dynamics of it. I understand collegiate athletics. I understand that the football programs are the ones that pull the revenue and pay for the rest of the teams. My question is do you think there's going to get to a point where the money's so big for football that they're not going to let the logistics of the swim team or the gymnastics team get in the way of them joining a conference that will make them viable going forward at the highest level?
Who are we talking about?
Just anybody. I mean, even the whole conference.
At this point, you have to be in specifics because, are you talking about a team leaving where to go where? Well,
for instance, USC is going all the way across to the Midwest, and they're going to be taking all of their athletics. But the fact that they'll be making about $50 million more a year was yeah, we could afford to do that. But you want to give us $50 million more in revenue? We'll go ahead and add on $10 million in travel expenses or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the debate then?
My question is actually more towards the conference level. Let's say the Big Ten. I don't know. I mean, I think the pool of actual teams throughout the entire country, out of the 131, is shrinking really fast. That because who's a value add? We could break it down. Notre Dame, no brainer, right? Everyone's adding them. Miami, most likely, no brainer, serious value add. But then where do we start going from there? I mean, chat, you guys, if you want to get involved, who are the other programs in the country they're going to move the needle enough that an SEC or a Big Ten is going to want to add them. I mean, I hear teams like North Carolina, Oregon, whatever. These are all great. I love their football programs, but are they going to add that? They're actually going to be taking away a piece of the pie from the Alabamas and from the Ohio States and the Notre Dame if they want to join. They're not. Notre Dame's not going to want to join and then bring in like Oregon, for instance, which means all of a sudden now they'll be losing money out of what they're bringing.
Well, do you think that they might do what they did with Maryland Records? Is that these new teams, if they do add teams, that they'll not get the full share?
But don't eventually they do?
Yeah,
Doesn't
they eventually
Maryland
get it is the problem.
Oh.
Maryland would be at full share today had they not had to keep borrowing money. And to Tim's point, the school I feel the worst for is Oklahoma State. They have a tremendous athletic department. They have
Fantastic.
great sports, and they're stuck. I don't want to say stuck in the Big 12 because, I mean, I do like the Big 12, but they're stuck in the Big 12. And unfortunately, Oklahoma State does not move the needle enough to get to the Big 10 or the SEC.
And the other thing too is Oklahoma State, like if you look at their financials, they run their athletic departments much, much more like the other conferences do. Like they have their athletic department's really well run. It's a great department. I mean, they win all kinds of national championships, but like the elements of their financials really look like a Pac-12 or an ACC or a Big Ten or an SEC school more than they do like a Big 12 school.
Right.
The Oklahoma State University. What's up, Truck Stop Gumby? Truck Stop Gumby should call in.
And
Talk about Oski.
And what are your guys' thoughts? I mean, we're hearing a lot of talk, and not from anybody really with power, but you're hearing a lot of noise about the P2. We're going to separate. Do they really want? Because if you separate, this is what people don't talk about. If you leave the NCAA for football, you got to come up with a commissioner. You got to come up with all the rules, all this, and that can't be done overnight. Okay, you're not just tomorrow. Hey, next year we're going to start. No, you got to get lawyers. You got to draw.
You got to have office teams. You got to have registrations. You got to have like eligibility checks and processes and validate compliance stuff. Like you got to set all that up. Like I don't see how you set all that up.
Yeah, and you're not going to set it up in a year. I mean, it's going to take time. And the other problem is, how much money is that going to cost? How much time? How much money? And then why not just do like they have in the past? Why not just have a Big Ten and an SEC and just keep putting money into it and expand the playoffs? And we all know, I mean, yes, the Big 12 could have a year like last year where maybe Kansas State and TCU both make a 12-team playoff or a 16-team playoff. But we all know going ahead with Texas and Oklahoma coming over, USC and UCLA going to the Big 10, more time than not, you're going to have 3 or 4 SEC teams, 3 or 4 Big 10 teams, and then you're going to get, the rest. And what a lot of people I think is funny is I hear a lot of screaming from the Big 12. Well, the Pac-12 sucks, and they're not going to make it because they're only going to make $25 million, and we make $32 million. That's $7 million is the end of the world. But guess what? You make $30 million less than the SEC. So how is the $7 million between the Big 12 and the Pac-12 killing somebody, but you make $30 million less than the SEC? So Tony will have the numbers, I know. But I will tell you that the Big 12, money-wise, is closer to the AAC, not the ACC, the AAC, than they are to the Big 10 and to the SEC. And I think that's what's going to push the divide is the money.
All 3 of those conferences are.
Right. I truly think the only choice for the other 3 conferences is let's let some of the big boys from the ACC go to the Big 10, go to the SEC, and let's make one other super conference from the remaining 3.
The issue is, so this is what I talked about with Mark when this topic came up, and then why I think that makes the most sense if you want to have a competitive conference that's going to be close to the Big Ten or the SEC. But here's the problem with that: it's still going to leave out a lot of teams. So if you picked apart the ACC, who's left from the ACC after things go, after the grant of rights mixes up and some leave for the Big Ten, some leave for the SEC, whoever's left over. And then you have some quality teams in the Big 12 we just talked about. You have like a West Virginia, you have an Oklahoma State. So you have those schools. And then in the Pac-12, right, you have schools like Oregon, Washington. They're really solid. Stanford, who knows? They decide they want to play football again, could be solid again. Arizona State's moving up.
Years.
So, I mean, there's some quality teams in the three. But are there enough? Let's assume that, let's say Clemson and Florida State, Miami. Who else would get picked up, do you think, to the Big Ten?
North Carolina.
Okay, we'll throw North Carolina in there.
And then Virginia. So you're going to lose 5 schools. You're going to lose North Carolina, Virginia, Miami, Notre Dame, and Clemson, because we know Clemson. So there's 5.
Okay, then other schools that are left in the ACC, who's
you got Florida State, maybe. You possibly have Florida State. You got Louisville. You got Duke.
Virginia Tech,
Okay,
Pitt.
but then whoever doesn't get picked up, there's a bunch of fan bases out there, and now we're not even talking about like the AAC and other conferences. You guys, once you start narrowing down the field to this elite 48 people you keep talking about, the TVs aren't going to want the TV networks aren't going to want to do that, because you're going to alienate a huge portion. Everyone thinks that the teams that are winning are the big college football fans. It's not. There are teams, the Cincinnati's, they don't just watch Cincinnati games. They're college football fans, so they watch all the games. You have teams that Central Florida, right, or smaller directional schools. They don't just watch their own team. They also watch the rest of their conference, and they watch other big teams play. Well, if you make their team irrelevant, then like I said on Mark's show, they're just gonna become NFL fans. They'll start spending their more time in the NBA or MLB. They'll just stop being a college football fan. So this idea that the networks are to push for this Super 48 teams, I don't think that's going to happen. And if they do, the closer you get to the NFL, you have the NFL and you have college football. If you take the academics, the regionality of it, most of the fans, and then you have this group, it's going to be like Arena League, because the quality of play that's going to be on the field between the NFL football and college football is going to be ridiculous. You're not going to have people watching it. They'll become Dallas Cowboy fans. That's what's going to happen. They'll become Panther fans. That's what they're going to do. So,
right. One thing that I think is funny.
There's a precedent for that. There's a precedent for that, but it was intentional, not accidental, which is the formation of the Ivy League in 1950, 53, 54, 55. I forget exactly when it launched. I
think it was 54 because they wanted Air Force in 55, wasn't it?
That was the other one. That was when the PAC wanted it. PAC wanted Air Force.
Okay.
They wanted him in 58. But the issue that they had was they really kind of wanted the world to pass them by, because they kind of wanted to get out of big time football, and so they pulled back the throttle. And as they did that, I mean, Harvard used to have 70,000 people at its games. Penn used to have up to 85,000 people at its games. And I mean, Yale, you filled the Yale Bowl with 75,000. Princeton had another 70,000. And now today they play in front of 7,000. And so what happens is that as fans become disattached, they don't usually cheer for another college, is the problem.
Right. And that's what was going to happen. They'll pick up, they'll become,
Now, there's a weird thing with it. One place this has sort of happened, though, is with the English Premier League. So the English Premier League and the soccer fans of the world, and Will knows this better than I do. I am not the right person to even describe this. But as they've had so much stratification, I understand that like kids nowadays, instead of just like cheering for Newcastle or whatever, maybe they'll cheer for Newcastle and Arsenal, and they almost like see them as like two separate little worlds. Almost kind of like, for example, Sunbelt fans, and I mean the Sunbelt is awesome, but like South Alabama fans, a lot of them cheer for that I know of anyway. Cheer for Alabama.
Yeah, the Mac
Alabama and
Ohio
Georgia.
fans cheer for Ohio State, right?
But
Yeah,
the problem with that analogy, Tony, is this. College football is not, the Premiership is the highest level of football, which is the most important sport in England, by far. Sure, they like rugby union. They have all kinds of things there that cricket, whatever. But it's really just football. It's their soccer, right? Which is the Premiership is the top notch. They have other lower divisions, Will, you probably, I don't remember from England. But there's a couple of different lower divisions.
The Championship,
that they have.
League One, League Two,
National
Conference.
National.
Right. And so there's other options to go that route. But in the United States, not only do we have the NFL, which is a higher level of football than we have in college football, but also you have Major League Baseball, which is huge. You have the NBA, which is also very big. I think you're right on the fact that they're not going to go from being, a Louisville fan to becoming like an Alabama Crimson Tide. They're going to pick a different team. They're going to go and they're going to become like I don't know, Carolina Panthers fan or whatever it would be. They're going to pick a new team in the NFL if they're going to stay in football at all. But if they screw football, I'm going to go watch some baseball. I just think that you got to be careful that you don't kill the golden goose, that you don't get too greedy. And I think the networks will not get too greedy because they do understand that college football is bigger than the Power Five. I mean, we wouldn't have the Power Five without all those other schools. The Power Five is called the Power Five because it's because there's the G5, right? It would just be football. But without those other fan bases who do watch the Power Five, it's a lot of Power Five teams don't watch G5. Some do, but I would bet a lot of G5 teams do watch the Power Five, and that's what drives a lot of these ratings. By the way, guys, look, we have like 80 people, 90 people in here, and in order to keep this thing going, we're gonna need a little bit more than how many likes do we have on this video? I don't know how many likes we have right now.
I'm showing 21.
Yeah, so we're gonna need to bump it. If you guys are enjoying the show, go ahead, take a second, hit that thumbs up, right? Subscribe to the channel, Voice of College Football, for chats like this on Friday night, and hit the bell so you know what's going on. But we got to do a little bit better than 24, 25 likes in order to stay on. So please do take a second to go and hit that like button. It costs you nothing, and it'll keep the show going. So if you guys do want to join us, also, we are doing a call-in portion. We have another word salad from our favorite contributor here, Jimmy Touchdown. I don't know if anyone can interpret this. I don't know if it's a joke or if it's supposed to be something interesting. Anyone want to touch this one?
So happy for USF. It has finally joined its directional JUCO counterpart, USC, on the West Coast in the AAU. UVA and UNC and ACC starting to feel like they're on the clock, like UT and OU in the Big 12.
Yeah, because clearly I see a parallel between the Cavaliers and the Tar Heels and the Longhorns and the Sooners. It very clearly this guy's a mess. But thank you so much for your time and your contribution.
Well, what do you think of this, Tim? The Big Ten, we've already heard from their presidents. They don't want to add anybody that doesn't move the needle and doesn't, keep their pay where it is. We know for a fact Notre Dame will do that. We're sure Miami is got to be close. I'm not saying they're exactly there, but they got to be close. So what's to stop the Big Ten taking those two, the SEC taking two, and just ending it at that? I think that makes more sense. We take North Carolina and Virginia. You guys in the Big Ten take Notre Dame and Miami. That still leaves great teams in the ACC to compete. ASU just got AAU status. They keep the Pac-12 together. I know the Big 12 wants to add teams, but why? That's not a bad conference the way it's set up now. And just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think a lot of thought went into the auto bids. I think that's why. I mean, everyone pushed back on the auto bids. If we're talking about today, these are the things that the TV and the presidents and the conference commissioners were talking about 2-3 years ago, or just recently we were talking about it. They knew they needed to keep everybody involved. And so what's the best way to do that? Look at March Madness. right? Some of these 16 seeds, these 15 seeds, they know they're not winning the tournament, but they get in. They get in because they win their conference and they get a seat at the table. And I think that's what a lot of college football just want. Say, hey, look, just give us a road to a championship. If we have our Cinderella team, that maybe we could do something. And I think that's what these auto bids are going to do, as I think some of these conferences kind of get picked apart a little bit more, and they start adding more G5 schools and calling it Power 5. But that's why they worded it weird as well, right, Tony? Is the fact that it's not about who gets a auto bid. It's the sixth highest ranked conference champion. So you could have an AAC that's going to be that, maybe get in above the Pac-12 or the Big 12 because, their champ is better. You have a couple maybe what are now G5s. And the more schools in these conferences start adding G5 schools, what's really the difference between some of these really powerful G5 schools than who might be the champion in some of these maybe used to be Power 5 conferences that might not be as strong now? By the way, Jason.
Well, and the other is it.
Guess what? Jason, thank you so much for the super chat. BYU to the big. Chris Foote told me. I think Chris Foote's am I right? I think he's a Colorado State alum, but maybe he is calling for BYU to the Big Ten. Thoughts, guys? Tony, what are your thoughts on BYU and joining the Big Ten? Okay, next.
We'll see. Ooh. Well, the other thing with the auto bids that we were talking about that I think it doesn't get enough attention is the fact that they really set the system up. So the idea of, like, right now we talk about the Power 5, and of course there's the autonomy NCAA legislative rules. It's a reason we do that. But aside from that, in the sort of current model, those 5 conferences have playoff, the playoff New Year's 6 preferences. In the expanded playoff, they don't. So the idea of the 5 mattering goes away because it's not those 5 and one of the G5. It's just the top 6, whoever it is. So that also leaves it pretty flexible. So, for example, say the ACC decided to raid the Big 12 and take all of its best teams, and they had to go out and get more G5s or whatever. If that sort of situation were to happen, what would happen is nobody loses any kind of status because you've already got a built-in structure, or vice versa, whatever. You've already got a built-in structure. It's just going to be the top 6 conference champion.
Yeah, so this expanded playoff is actually killing the Power 5.
Hey guys.
A little background
Because
noise.
as Tony said, the Power 5 goes away when you have the top 6 get automatic bids. But I do think if you guys listen to the Big Ten commissioner and you listen to the SEC commissioner, when they vote for this new playoff again, neither the Big Ten or the SEC wants to give automatic qualifying buys anymore. They don't want that. Now that USC's coming to the Big Ten and Texas and Oklahoma's coming to the SEC, both commissioners have flat out said they don't want automatic qualifiers getting a bye.
I just wanted to come in for a second because I wanted to join in the conversation for just a second. So I see a lot of people, and I see it in the chat, and I hear you guys talking about, and Tim made a good point a while ago about this as well. There's a lot of teams out there that aren't going to get into the SEC or the Big Ten that are Power 5 programs, and the reason the Power 5 program became a Power 5 program is because they had a track record of winning. Right? They were able to substantially win year in and year out, and have a good program, have the facilities, right? Have great facilities. So you take a team like Colorado, they're down right now. Believe me, Colorado's got the facilities and putting money into their facilities that they'll be back up there before long. Same thing with West Virginia. West Virginia's down right now, but we have the facilities, some of the nicest in the country, always adding money, always putting more into it. That's what makes a Power 5 program, in my opinion. So these teams will rise back up to the top. Here's my question, and this is the question that nobody can answer. Everybody says, well, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to grab Clemson and Miami and Florida State and Oregon and Washington, and the rest are going to go to Group of Five. Okay, so you're telling me that West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Pitt, Virginia Tech, these programs aren't going to have a place in Power 5 level, but yet Vandy and Rutgers and Maryland are? That's not going to happen. So, and if we're going to talk about conference shakeup and conference realignment, we have to talk about it all, I believe. That bottom line, there's a lot of great programs out there that are better programs than a lot of the teams that are in the SEC and Big Ten right now at this moment. That's all. That's my thought on that situation. So,
what do you think about this, Joey, before you leave? One of the worst teams over the last 20 years is a blue blood. Look at Nebraska. If we just started, okay, let's say we don't have any teams, okay, in the Big Ten. We have no teams in the SEC. Let's sit down and pick the top 40 teams. We put 20 here, 20 there. What number is Nebraska over the last 20 years? Now, you go throughout history, and, of course, Nebraska is a blue blood. And they're one of those teams, Joey, that you said they got the facilities, they got the money, so they should be able to build up. But it's been 20 years of really not good play by Nebraska, And so we make fun of Vandy and we make fun of, but I mean, Nebraska the last 20 years have almost been on their level.
Right. And so I just look at it as this. I think the Power 5 is Tony's always stressed this. It's the autonomy 5. They don't go away without a vote. And they're not going to vote themselves out. They're the ones that vote on it. The Power 5 teams are the ones that vote whether or not you remain in an autonomy 5 conference. The conferences and the teams, right?
Right.
They're not going to vote themselves out. I can't see West Virginia going in and say, yeah, we're a Group of 5 now. Oklahoma State,
it's the whole NCAA.
I'm a Group of 5.
Joey, didn't
It's
they
the
already
whole
vote
NCAA.
themselves out? Didn't they already vote out the Power 5? Because think about this. In a playoff where the top 6 conference champions move on, the Pac-12 could be left in the dark. The Big 12 could be left. Hell, the SEC, any conference could be left in the dark. So just because you're a Power 5 conference right now doesn't give you an extra shot at being into the playoff. Because now you got the Pac-12, you got the Big 12, all fighting with the AAC, with the Mountain West, with the MAC. You get a couple good teams in each of those. And what happens if, the Big 12 beats each other up and their conference champion has 3 losses? What happens if it's the Pac-12 the same way, or, any of the conference? So just because you're a G5, that don't give you any leg up on getting into the playoffs now.
That's a good point. That's a good point. All right, guys. I just wanted to come in and make that point about what I was saying. That there's too many teams that are not as good as some of the programs that are outside of the SEC and Big Ten. Right. I think we all can agree on that.
Right. But do you agree, Joey?
Hold on, guys. When was the last time someone from the Colonial won the NCAA tournament? It's not about being able to beat Georgia. It's about, I get a chance. If my team wins the conference, we're ranked high, we have a seat at the table.
Right.
And so to answer the real, those teams probably are not going to be in the top 12. But a lot of that is bias. We do know that. There's some programs that don't get ranked highly, and some teams don't deserve to be ranked as high as they are because of what conference they're in. And so when you tell the rest of college football out there, you tell teams like, like I brought Louisville before. You tell Louisville, look, you have a great, generational quarterback. You can make a run. You can get into the tournament and the playoffs, and maybe you could make some waves. Heck, maybe you can get a win like the Pac-12 hasn't. Oh, they got one. Does the Big 12 have a win? Whatever. You could your team, your conference could actually get a win in the playoffs and maybe make a run, get hot, if you have the right generational team. The point is that you allow them the chance. And if you turn off a bunch of people making it seem like, well, we're going to decide, we're just going to have the Big Ten and the SEC play each other, and whoever wins that is going to be the national champion. You're going to watch, like I said earlier, all these fans, college football fans, become baseball, basketball, baseball. They might go to motorsport, whatever, but they're not going to stay a fan if their team gets relegated to like a Division II team. There's not going to even show up on Saturdays. So that's the key, and that's why.
I agree with that, and I think I think television markets are too smart to do something like that. So,
and that's why we have the auto bids. Yeah, I agree.
And by the way, yes, Big 12 has won a playoff game. TCU won one last year. They beat Michigan. Remember?
That's because Michigan played them. That doesn't count.
Yeah, but we don't count Michigan. I mean, Michigan cannot win a bowl game, so that don't.
All right, guys. Love you. See you later.
All right.
Bye, Joey.
Hey, guys, we got to call. Let's bring him in. Yeah. First off, you guys. So if I put it in there. If you guys want to join us, you can join us. Anthony, if you want right now, you're backstage. I can see you. If you'd like, you can keep your camera on, or you can, I mean, I have a face for radio. I should probably have my camera off too, but you can be shy. You can come on here if you want to. You can have your camera on, be loud, be proud, or you can go ahead and you can just shut it down. That's fine. Either way, it's good with us. But I will ask one thing. We have 100 people out there. We have 112 people out there right now. We have less than 50 likes. Let's hit some likes and keep this thing going, because I can't justify to Mark using his channel if we are not getting people out there to actually hit the like button. So we're at 43 right now. I'd like to see us get to at least 50 to keep the show going.
We should get to 60. At least half of the people should hit the like. I mean, that's not asking much.
How long have you been on YouTube? People think that they have to give a credit card number to hit the like button. It's free, it's easy, and it will keep the show going. So go ahead, you guys out there. There's 3 people just hit it. We're gonna need a couple more likes to keep this thing going. But I will get Anthony on here to talk with us. Anthony, how you doing?
Hey guys, how are you today? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Good. Hey, how you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing fine. Tony, I have a question for you. Actually, this applies to what the research what research does the research that Miami and Notre Dame do normally fit what the type of research that the Big Ten is known for? Because we're known, do a lot of schools do meteorological research in the Big Ten?
I mean, they do all kinds. Miami does all kinds of stuff. Miami has all sorts.
But we're known for but specifically we're known for our meteorological research. That's our top research and stuff. I mean,
you do all kinds of stuff. You do what, $400 million or 375 or whatever it is $million or something of research.
But what I'm talking, I know we do a lot of research, but I
guess I really don't understand the question.
Well, Tony, what he's trying to say is meteorology. The Big Ten does not line up with that. I mean, the Big Ten don't have a lot of that.
I don't know. What is lining up? Michigan State does brilliant veterinary research.
No, he's talking specifically about weather research.
I don't know. I'm not a weatherman. I don't know.
We do a lot of hurricane research. We do a lot of tornado research and stuff like that. So I think the reason why I'm asking that, based on what we study, I think our research type of research, we would fit better in the SEC than the Big Ten, is what I'm saying. Because a lot of the schools in the SEC do the almost similar research that we do in terms of the funding we put in.
I don't know. Let's change the subject, because I don't know that that's necessarily relevant. But I mean, they certainly do a lot. Miami has phenomenal programs across the board in lots of different areas. They have phenomenal programs in lots of different physical science, life science, social sciences.
Yeah. Okay. And also for me, this is where I'm coming from as a football fan in general. Also, when it comes to the expansion, I understand why some Miami fans would want to go to the Big Ten, but to me, I think it would make sense for the SEC to cover all the way to the Southwest, get the Arizona teams and the rest of the Power Five Texas teams like Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State. And
it's funny. It's funny you say that, Anthony. I was talking the other day with Mike from PHN Sports. He's an awesome guy. Does a great job covering Arizona. I mean, I'll be totally honest. I think that Arizona and Arizona State would be phenomenal in the SEC should they decide that they wanted to have a broader reach. I mean, those are great schools. That's a great state. It's a big market. It's in the South, so it's not, that far. I mean, I'm not predicting that. I'm not saying that's happening. I don't think the SEC wants that. I know for a fact that Arizona State and Arizona aren't looking at that. But just, I mean, hypothetically, in a world where that conference changed its mind, I think you're right. There's a lot of great schools that would really fit in well with them.
Yeah,
and the great thing about Miami is
and continue on that, Tony, continue on that. Also adding Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and UCF too, like dominating the whole South and stuff like that. And then Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten where they actually fit more. And I think UNC, realistic to me, UNC fits more the Big Ten than the SEC, in my honest opinion, because they're closer to the.
Here's the thing with North Carolina, though, and I agree half with you. North Carolina academics fits in with the Big Ten, but the president and a lot of the regents, they want North Carolina to stay in the South. Academically, they do fit, and just like Miami, you would actually fit in better with the Big Ten than you do the SEC.
Why do you say that? Can you explain that to me?
I'm a Bama fan. I've been to many Bama games. I understand Bama. Me and my buddies want to go watch Alabama play Miami. So we're going to come on down to Miami. Where do we park 400 RVs in Miami?
Dolphin Stadium has a big, if we don't have, where you're going to be parking in front of a pro stadium and stuff like that. Those pro parking lots are huge. Those pro stadium parking lots are huge.
So you guys are okay with us bringing 400 RVs and sitting in that stadium for a week?
Okay, no.
Yeah, because we show up on Wednesday and we leave on Monday. So I mean, that's the thing. And the thing is, I mean, Miami, I'm not talking just football. Okay, football, you guys fit well with the SEC, but you're a small private school. We got Vandy for that. We're not really, private schools. Education-wise and academic-wise, you would gain more by being in the Big Ten than you would the SEC. I hate to say that, because I'm SEC, but you do gain a lot more. You would actually benefit a lot more being in the Big Ten than you would in the SEC.
And the reason why I say that, realistically for me, the reason why I say Miami would make more sense, because the history, the bad blood and the bad history with FSU and the SEC, because when the SEC first expanded, when FSU was independent before they joined the ACC, the SEC didn't want FSU, or Bobby Bowden actually said it, that he had a better chance of making championship runs in the SEC than the ACC instead of the SEC. So I don't think the bad blood is so bad. I don't think the SEC is going to allow Florida State in. Do you guys agree?
Well, and if you heard me earlier, me and Tim talked about this today, and Tim sounded a little surprised, but I think Florida State is on the outside looking in. They're not going to the Big Ten without AAU, and they don't have that. And the SEC, hey, you got an easier shot in the ACC. Go ahead and stay there. We don't need Florida State. Florida State does not do anything for the SEC. Just like in the Big Ten, they don't move the needle for us. We bring them in. I don't know that Florida State can pay their own bill. Are they worth $80 million a year?
No, I don't think so.
If we're talking in the 90s with Bowden and the run they had, yeah, we'll write the check. But you look at what they've done in the last 10 years. Now they're coming on strong, and I mean, they look like they're going to be back, but do they move the needle enough for the SEC to write them what, a $75 million?
So here's what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to say. They just won a national title 11 years ago. Okay.
Yep.
They are one of the teams that we've all been discussing here. When was the last time? And by the way, someone brought North Carolina. It was Search. the issue is with some of these teams we're talking about. Yes, there are great academic schools, but at some point we are still talking football. And North Carolina has never shown us that they're going to win a national championship in football, right?
Basketball,
so,
maybe, but not football.
Well, I'm fully aware of their basketball heritage, but I'm talking football right here. The issue is with a Florida State is they've shown with the right coach, they will win national championships. Oklahoma with the right coach wins national championships, right? A number of teams, Miami with the right coach wins national. USC wins national. These are the teams that you want in your conference that will. There's a bunch of people now in the SEC and the Big Ten folks who have never won or even sniffed. Haven't sniffed a national championship in 50 years. Okay, is what I'm going to say. So, to your point,
out. Unlike the Big Ten, the SEC next year, half of our teams have won a national championship in less than 25 years.
Yeah. No, and for me, as a Hurricane fan, the reason why I say I would rather be in the SEC, because honestly, Miami has struggled with cold weather games the past few decades and stuff like that. And I don't think we can deal with being up in Camp Randall during the middle of winter. Or Michigan or Ohio State during the middle of winter and stuff like that.
It's okay because but if you think about it, you'd be fine because Big Ten teams, they don't play very well at bowl game stadiums, so you'd be good to go.
Wait, who just said that?
Yeah.
Was that Tony?
Every time you bring
when was the last time the Big Ten won a big game in a bowl game stadium? You guys are fine at home.
Yeah.
Fine.
Exactly. You just.
I'm just kidding, Michigan. I'm just kidding. I love you guys.
No. And as a Hurricane fan, and also the reason why I say I would rather be in the SEC specifically is because I would rather be in an area where I can actually drive. I don't want to be flying as a Hurricane fan. I don't want to be flying all the way up to Ohio State or something like that. I would rather drive to Florida or go up to Georgia or Alabama, drive to those driving distance wise. For fans, it would be easier for us to be in the SEC. But money wise, I see what you're saying, Tide guy. That money wise, it would make more sense for Miami to go to the Big Ten because the big teams in the SEC are not going to give up the money to let Miami in.
And unfortunately for you, Anthony, the person who's going to make the decision is the president, and the president's going to vote for the money and the academics and the money, and there's there's been argument in the chat about the Big Ten and the SEC and who makes more money in TV and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry to tell the SEC fans, the Big Ten makes more money in TV than the SEC. We might have the titles, but they have the markets, and the markets give them more money.
Yeah, but and honestly, it would be cool to revive the rivalry with Oklahoma as a Oklahoma and Texas. We had big rivalries with Miami against Texas and Oklahoma during the 80s and stuff like that in the 90s. So those rivalries, I would rather renew those rivalries than renew it with Michigan or Ohio State. That's what
Notre Dame, remember? You got the Catholics versus the Catholics. Come on.
Hey guys, and I don't know if you just some breaking news, Jeff. Breaking news. The Auburn Tigers have just been smoked by the Pennsylvania Quakers.
Oh, nice.
Oh, gee.
SEC falls to the Ivy League.
SEC. Way to go, Auburn.
IIV. There you go.
And this isn't another
Quakers
question
won.
that I want to ask you guys. With the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams, like the NCAA is rumoring it's going to happen, if that happens, would it make sense to follow the
Oh, he muted himself.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I actually muted myself. That was embarrassing. What I was going to ask, do you guys think it would make sense
All right. Now he don't mute himself. He just takes himself out of the stream.
Oh, you probably didn't mean to do that.
All right. Tony,
Tim, you're muted.
do we got somebody in? I think, is Tim talking to us or is he on the phone?
I don't know. We got LBC Rob.
My bad. We have another caller calling in. My bad. But we have a bunch of super chats we need to get to.
All right.
So I don't know where to begin with these. I can't remember which ones we've hit already. But let's go with. Oh no, that's not it. Super chat right here. Sergeant Pickles, thank you. Sergeant Pickles went dark for a while, but he's returned to us. Hello all. I'm just ready for the games to start. I think you should be ready. I think that the Dogs are going to be sick this year. I think you guys are right there with USC and Utah and possibly the Ducks for who's going to win the whole thing in the Pac-12. So we're glad you're back.
Michael Penix is awesome.
And your receivers, Oduze and oh my God, there's 3 of them. I'm sure Pickles will tell me right now. But yeah, I think they're going to do a lot. The big thing about them is that we know they have the offense. I think they got a lot of returning depth on defense. That's going to be their front seven is going to give some teams some trouble. So, appreciate you calling in. I think we have another one. I can't tell. Oh, here we go. My favorite stalker. Knows nothing.
I think we did that one
thank
already.
you once again, Jimmy,
one.
for your super chat. That's wonderful. Appreciate your money. Thank you. And then we have Jason Moose. We had that one already. Touchdown donating some more lunch money. Apparently USC is going to rot. Okay.
Good. We can just skip those.
And then Jimmy Otson.
I think he's gone.
Why would the SEC or Big want UNC? So, I think we've covered this one quite a bit.
The SEC wants them for the new footprint, a new state, and North Carolina is actually growing as a state. So that's why they want
win in football.
Yeah, and they are a decent football team. They are, they got a coach again that's doing well, and so the SEC would want them for those reasons.
Maybe a new defensive coordinator. I don't know. Gene Chiswick's the guy.
Those Chiswick defenses have been pretty sweet, huh? Well, the Irish liked it, so
yeah.
And then we had a really good point here. No, that's it. So that's the last of them. But we have another caller, LBC Rob. Thanks for calling in.
What's up, Rob?
Hey, Rob.
Tony, gentlemen, what's happening?
Right on, Rob.
What's going on? I know my man Tim and Tony, and I love this kid, Will. Havana, roll tide. How you doing, sir?
Roll tide, doing good.
All right. Yeah, y'all interrupted my billions marathon because my ST voice needs some backup. So I got.
Rob, did you have a question for us?
Yes, I do. As far as the next season goes in the current state of college football, what do you guys think of the new rules as far as effective? The bottom rules are still the game start on time for the networks. Let's be honest here. Do you think that as far as the power conferences, such as the teams with primetime spots as SC, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, are they going to benefit, or will they be negatively impacted by that rule? Say a primetime AM game for a Pac-12 team at 9 a.m. Say some other unconceived notion that a prime TV spot could end up being a disadvantage. But I had nothing.
I don't want to play at 11 a.m. I'm sorry. We did that to Texas last year. You don't want to play at 11 a.m. That's not a fun time to be playing.
I don't think they're going to. Yeah, and I don't think they're going to put many of those games. I don't want to say never at 9 in the morning. But remember, they've paid a fortune to be able to broadcast games to the people in the LA market. So they're not going to squander that with a 9 a.m. game, unless there's a very, very, very specific reason, wacky schedule thing they kind of have to. Now, if you remember, the conference experimented with that in COVID. And what they found was that for the teams, it was fine, right? I mean, whatever. It's a little bit earlier than noon, but the teams, it was fine. For the fans, it was awful. And the TV fans, it was awful. And so, your question is, did Fox pay that much money to waste what they've bought. And I think the consensus from everyone I've talked to who actually has any knowledge of the TV industry has been no, they're probably do that, except maybe a fluke once every 3 years kind of thing.
Anything else,
I
Rob?
don't know. Do you guys think differently? What do you guys think?
No, I
was waiting.
agree.
Yeah, I was waiting.
Time slot at 9 with the best game. I mean, the biggest game is always going to be either 2:30 or 7 o'clock.
And we
Yeah,
love,
I'm liking-
and, like,
I'm
the big
liking those
crowds is
afternoon
what
games.
we want to see. Like, we love seeing like the good teams trying to go into the hostile environments to win. Like, that's what it's all about.
Yep.
Because 4 o'clock here in the Pacific, right? Which would be what, 7 o'clock Eastern. That's a great time slot because you're going to see, especially early in the season, the game's going to start during the day, especially as a fan. Starts in the day, where it's a little bit cooler, and then it ends just as the sun's going down. So it's a perfect time to Coliseum to have a game. I mean, I love that time slot. I think USC is going to get that time slot quite a bit.
For the right, I can pretty much tell you this with all certainty. No one wants to play or practice to have a uniform on at 9 a.m. Trust me on that. And at the same time, 7 o'clock at night is too late. So I think selfishly for SC fans, they want to find SC playing between those two times. Let's just put it that way. But however, as Tony is so adeptly really pointing out on this challenge so well, as far as TV revenues go, there is other considerations, so to speak, involved in that decision. I just wonder, when is that going to affect the aspect of fair competition and when TV numbers mean more than play? Because I kind of already feel we're crossing that line with the adequacies made to offense to induce in the excuse of safety. So I'll take that. If you guys need to move on, I love all of you. And touch base.
We may so we may not be done fully with the late night games. So one of the things about the Big Ten contract is Fox does.
I think Tony's frozen up. But here's the thing. I'm hoping, one thing, Rob, as a person that goes to all the home games, I'm not going to miss going to 7 p.m. games. I'm just not going to, those games where we're on the East Coast at 10 o'clock and no one's watching Caleb light up the scoreboard. Those days are gone. And the days where we're, again,
they're mostly gone, but they're not entirely gone because remember, Fox bought that. Fox owns that rights to do that with us.
So
a couple times a year we are going to have.
If it's a bad game of everything, they're going to put us on that slot. If there's bad everything else, they're going to put us on that slot if they got nothing else in that time frame. Tim,
but you guys remember the rest of our audience.
Remember, Fox.
Why are we going to pay? Why are we going to pay you?
I don't know how many times I can tell this to USC fans.
Who's echoing?
But Fox bought that slot to be able to do that.
Right.
Does that not make sense? I feel like I'm not communicating.
You talk about the fact that so in the Midwest, where people be watching these games, it's gonna be 10 o'clock at night. You think we're gonna start games at 10 p.m.?
Actually, let me see. Rob, do you have a YouTube window open by chance? There's a echo.
There we go. Yep.
Oh, yeah. I think that was it. Yes. Remember that Fox has the
most of those games. UCLA will play most of those games, but unfortunately for USC, you're going to play a couple games a year on that time slot, unfortunately.
I feel like it's going to be like the Northwestern games or the Rutgers games.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Yeah, I don't mind that.
Play UCLA.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Anyone else? So, Rob, any more questions for us?
Oh, wait, on Tim, Tony, Will, and D. Always a pleasure, kid. Ty, pleasure meeting your acquaintance, sir. Look forward to talking to you real soon.
Nice meeting you. Have a good night.
Have a great night, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, so you guys, we have room. That's it in our call queue. If you guys want to call in, we still now we do have space available. You get right in. I see a lot of comments in the chat. I see a lot of names I don't recognize. You guys come on in here. talk about your team. Let us know what you guys like to talk about. But also, I will say this, we're at 67 likes. We have over 111 people watching. Let's get that number up to 75 so we can keep going, because 67 likes for everyone here. We love you being here, but it is a Friday night for us, and I personally am not going to sit here for not getting any calls or any likes. So you guys, we're at 68 right now. It's 70 you guys out there of the 110 or so. Go ahead and hit that like button. We'll keep this thing going. In the meantime, we got another caller. We got Sean Garner coming in. Sean, how you doing?
What's up, Sean?
Sean, you are muted.
Sean, you there?
You got to hit the unmute button, buddy. You're muted.
Okay, I'll
All right, while we're waiting for Sean,
guys.
there's a bunch of people out there who disagree with us. Come on in and tell us why we're wrong. Tell us what you think is happening.
Sean, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Sorry,
How you doing?
you got me in a little quickly. I had to go mute a couple things real quick. So, I'm doing great. Apologize if I'm covering some ground. I literally just, sort of tuned into this, and I've been interested. I've read a couple stories about this AAU deal, this AAU development, and was a little bit intrigued, a little bit surprised at some of the decisions they made. They let in Arizona State, not particularly known as an academic powerhouse in the past. At least that's just my perception. Notre Dame and Miami are not major research institutions.
Right.
These were things I thought might have been prerequisite. So some of these, and USF too is not. I mean, I think the admission rate for USF is quite high. So I don't know what. So the standards, at least from my perception, seem to have changed a little bit on AAU admission here. And I mean, I'm not. Could anyone enlighten me as to what decisions were made here?
Well, here's a couple things with Arizona State. Their research money is not as huge as you'd like it, but they've already announced they're building a new medical center.
Oh no, theirs is huge. Arizona State is about $700 million.
Yeah.
Right. So
they're a big one.
They're doing the research, but they're putting in a medical, and I mean, they're not the one that's questionable. Miami, to me, would be more questionable than Arizona State. Not that Miami's not a great school and don't do research, but it's down further. And there's a few other schools on the list that I would have had, and I thought they would have had above Miami. Teams like Georgia. Georgia does more research.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Florida State, if you look at all the metrics, not just research and that, I thought Florida State was a little above Miami, and yet Miami snuck in.
Do you know, were those schools applying for AAU membership?
Yeah, no. If you're a research school, you're applying.
You don't really apply. It's like membership at Augusta. Like it comes to you,
right?
Yeah. And then you provide all the information that they want. Like it's very much an invitation. Like you're invited to put in for it once they want you.
Okay, and I know that some schools like Nebraska was one at one point. Iowa State was another one at another point in time. And
Nebraska would be an AAU today. Nebraska would be. If a school wasn't a snitch called Michigan, if Michigan wouldn't have snitched on them, they would have still been AAU.
Yeah, there's weird politics there.
Yeah.
Are they were they maybe a little bit bitter about sharing that national championship in '97? Is that
they may have been
still a grudge? Yeah. So how much do you think this conference realignment has driven? How much do you think that was a factor in this latest batch of schools getting getting pushed in. Do you think there was much? This has much to do with that? Are they related?
I think it does, and Tony might disagree. Notre Dame, it's conference realignment. I'm sorry. Notre Dame could have been AAU anytime they wanted it in the last 30, 40 years. They've never wanted it. They never cared. So why now? I mean, that's what surprised. It don't surprise me that they got AAU. They deserve it. But it surprises me that
only geniuses like Will can get in to it. So
right.
Yeah. But I mean, Notre Dame does actually fall short on some of the metrics that they said they say are real valuable to them, but it's undoubtedly a great university, a fantastic school.
Well, and remember too, Notre Dame was the highest ranked school not already in the AAU.
Right.
Yes.
And now Georgetown is the only sort of like one that really sticks out that's not in there.
Right.
Among the sort of academic mega shops. The one that isn't getting any eyebrows raised. And I mean, I know that the UC system is just a behemoth of all things.
Right.
Riverside.
Yeah, I certainly can't comment on UC Riverside. I can't imagine that has much to do with conference realignment, but
now the thing that broke my heart though was my little University of Alabama Birmingham with all of its research money couldn't get AAU.
Yeah, why they need to just find a way to like reclassify that all to U of A.
Yeah.
So I've heard you talk about this before, Tony, and Todd Guy can probably speak to this too. You say Alabama has sort of fudged numbers when it comes to the research, that it's really down.
Well, they just don't get credit for it.
Alabama
they don't
has
get credit
three
for
schools.
it.
Yeah, we have three schools. We have the University of Alabama, everybody knows. And then everybody seems to love UAB, their football and that. But that's Alabama. UAB is actually part of Alabama. That's our medical school. And that's where 60% of our research happens. And then we have another school nobody really talks about or hears about, the University of Alabama at Huntsville. That's our rocket scientists. That's where,
it's NASA is right there. Mm-hmm.
So if you add Huntsville's research and you add UAB's research and then you add Alabama's, which isn't much because all the big research is done at the other two schools, we have over like 965 million in research. But everybody thinks we're hicks because Alabama only claims about 130 million of it because that's the research that's done on the Alabama.
On the Tuscaloosa campus.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Is there any reason why they do that? I'm sure they could adjust the books to get a more maybe accurate reflection of.
They don't really care. I mean, honestly, they don't really care. I mean, and that's why a lot of people always ask, well, why did Alabama for years play most of our games at Birmingham and then some of them at Tuscaloosa? It's because, we had UAB that we kind of took credit for a little more than we have as of late. And so for Alabama, we don't really care if you credit our research or not. We know what we got. Kind of like Cal, they only credit $4.5 to $5 billion in research. But when you grab all their other schools, it's $10 billion. They don't care if it's together or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Notre Dame angle on this, do you think they're like actually trying to just make themselves available to the Big Ten? Is that their eventual push here, or is this just a way to keep their options open?
Personally, I think the only way, and Will can tell you, I think the only reason why they took AAU is in the very near future, maybe not in the next 30 days, but within the next 365 days, I think you're going to hear Notre Dame to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you would have talked to me on Wednesday, I would tell you you are crazy if you think Notre Dame's going to join a conference within the next year. I would.
Dude, I think right after the 2024 season ends, that's probably when the Irish are going to join.
But I mean, the other thing too is remember that this is a huge, amazing academic achievement for Notre Dame too. Like we think about it from the football end, but just as far as like this is Notre Dame being accepted into groups that 100 years ago Notre Dame would have only dreamed of. And so, you know, in that regard, like this just alone is a wonderful celebration for Notre Dame, probably aided by the fact that a number of its institutional best friends were on the board. But it is something definitely well deserved and worth celebrating, even if they decide to stay forever independent. But it's certainly
Notre Dame's probably the poster child school of athletics raising a university's academic profile and their capability, because I mean, I can't imagine without the football tradition that the school would be where it is today. It's not even close. I mean, it's in a terrible location. I mean, I can say that because I live about an hour away from there.
Sean, thanks for calling in. We got another caller. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks, Buzz.
Have a good night, Sean.
And Sean, I think you're totally right on that.
Thank you. Have a great one.
All right. So next up, we have Clay from looks like California. Clay, how you doing?
Michigan.
But he's from California because he's got the wrong flag.
How you doing, guys?
Good.
All right, we got
from
another
Michigan.
star head. Semper Fi.
California when I was in the Marines, but now, can you hear me?
Yeah, you break it up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
He probably called in
Okay,
to set us straight about making fun of Michigan.
Go to the Big Ten.
Hey Clay, I'm gonna put you on backstage for a few minutes so your internet gets sorted out. We'll bring you right back on. We got another super chat, this time from Jason Moose. So can we get through a day where Nick Saban isn't complaining? First his college football playoffs. Now he's crying about his tough schedule. Nobody feels sorry for Bama. Well, you could throw in there he's complaining about NIL as well. Jeff, why don't you cover this one?
Here's the thing. I will let Nick Saban quit complaining when he quits winning championships. He can bitch all he wants as long as we're putting titles up. I don't care.
It's been ages. What? When was the last time Alabama won a championship? I can't even say with a straight face.
I think it was the last time I shaved, but I mean, I could be wrong. But no, the thing with Nick Saban is, I love this because everybody says, well, he's complaining. When hadn't he complained? I mean, remember when, the hurry up offense come, he said it's going to ruin the sport and blah, blah. He complains every year. So, I mean, I think it is funny, though, that a lot of people are saying, Nick Saban doesn't want to play 9 conference games. Everybody who's heard Nick Saban for the last 10 years wanted more conference games. He just complained because the SEC, one of the models, had Georgia playing Vanderbilt. When the hell has Vanderbilt been Georgia's rival? He just wanted the rivalries to be a little more even. Make Georgia play Auburn, who is their rival, play Florida, who's their rival, and then play either a Tennessee, a South Carolina, someone closer to home that's their rival, not Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, as always, Jason, for supporting not only this show, but all of Mark's channels. You do a great job doing that, and we appreciate your thoughts. Well, I think we're running out of callers. Clay, I guess Clay dropped. Clay, if you get your internet back together, feel free. Those of you guys out there, we're kind of on our last call for calls. If you guys are interested in calling in, this would be a good time. Or if we can crank up those likes, we're about 81 likes. We get those likes above 90, we'll keep going, or if we get a phone call. Otherwise, I don't know about you guys, but it's Friday night. I might be heading out.
If nobody wants to talk to us, there's no point. I mean, we kind of – Will, did you hit everything you wanted to with Notre Dame and with the AAU?
Yeah, like it's kind of sad that we're gonna lose our independent status, but I think it's for the best for the football program for us.
I do think, though, let's say this for a second. Let's say Notre Dame in 2026 or 2025, 2026, probably 2026 when the new playoffs really go in. Let's say you are in the Big Ten. Let's say the Big Ten goes to a 9-game conference schedule, blah, blah, blah. So you got 3 at large you get to play. Navy's got to be one of them, right? You can't give up Navy. I don't care what anybody says. You got to have Navy. And I do think you have to keep Stanford. Do you not? Because, you'll be in the Big Ten, so you could play in California every year. Because maybe if they're your rivals, though, because if not, you might go every other.
We might go every other with Stanford or drop them. I could see.
So here's the thing, though, you're guaranteed every year pretty much because you're going to play USC or UCLA every other year.
Well, here's the thing. You have to pick your rivals because that's just the thing. When people talk about how, that Notre Dame was a much better fit in the ACC and all that other stuff, I told them right away, clearly not. Because, when I think of Notre Dame, I think of Michigan. First, I think of USC, who is, I believe, your number one rival. Then I think Michigan State. They've been around for ages, right? Playing you guys until recently. And then there's Michigan who decides, if they're good enough, they'll play you. And then they drop you off the schedule and they bring you back. Or I don't know if it's you or Michigan, but you guys got to figure out, are you rivals or not? Because if you're rivals,
actually, Tim, though, it is Notre Dame's fault that Michigan don't play them. Because they beat them too bad, and then they don't want to play. If you guys would just let Michigan
me out, okay. Yeah. But there's Purdue. All of your rivals, and Stanford. If Stanford were to come on as well, all of your rivals are now that USC's there are in the Big Ten. If they bring Miami in, think about that. Think about Stanford, Miami, USC, Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue. Navy's not coming, but other than that, I think we have all of your rivals, your traditional rivals. So we got a couple more calls here. We got 2 people. We got Chris Foote, and then we have Joe Long. Chris, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Oh, hi Tim. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. You have a question for us?
Well, not exactly. And I don't.
We need a question because we got someone behind you. So.
Oh, okay. You need a question.
Or tell us why we're wrong. If you don't have a question, just tell us why we're wrong.
Well, I don't really work that way, but I disagree with some of the things you say, but I don't know that makes you wrong.
Okay, what do you disagree with? What do you think, I
like what Tim says. There's nothing wrong with the idea of Stanford, all those, they all kind of come together. And I guess my big objection is, it's just my perception, I guess, but not everything comes in a bright package with a bright red bow, all wrapped up nice and neat. Sure. I guess in a perfect world, we would maybe have a Notre Dame playing Michigan and who knows, maybe they'd play them anyway, but I think there might be a reason why Notre Dame hasn't taken that step yet. And I'm not necessarily saying that they shouldn't. I think if I was in their shoes, I think I might even jump at it, to be completely honest. I think, kind of like what Tim was saying, I think when you get to play Stanford, or I guess assuming if Stanford comes on, but that's a step up in my opinion. But is it really wrong to have them play like you said, Navy? That's a team that's probably not going to challenge for a title, but I think some people kind of look forward to that game. And so
I'm not advocating that go away at all. I'm saying I don't think they're joining the Big Ten. But yeah, people rag on that, but that is absolutely a traditional rival. They've played. Will, how many years in a row have you guys played Navy?
Since World War II.
World War II. I was going to say World War II. We played you guys every. And honestly, Navy is my second team, being a jarhead, and I love watching Navy play Notre Dame, and I get excited when it's close, when we got a chance, because of the style of ball Navy plays. More times than not, here lately, we've had a chance. We've, made it competitive because Notre Dame's not used to people knocking on their knees all day long, cut blocking. And
Yeah.
I think
So listen, hey, really quickly, one more, Chris, because we have 3 people now behind you.
I'm no one. Like I said, I don't want to interfere. I just who's Navy's coach? Didn't they fire Ken Niumatalolo? Don't they have a new coach? Am I wrong? I thought they fired him.
Yeah, they.
Yeah, he got let go at the end of last season. Who is their new coach? I can't think of his name.
Okay, I thought maybe you might know, but I don't know either. So
I did, but when you asked it, unfortunately, I'm trying to.
All right, we'll figure out. Listen, we'll figure it out. If we do, we'll let you know. All
well,
right.
am I gone then? Am I gone? I was going to ask you.
We got 2 more people, Chris, and
It's Brian
and
Newberry.
we're getting a little bit late.
Yeah,
Brian Newberry is the coach.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, hey Chris, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for
Chris.
calling in. We'll catch you later next time. All
Hi, Chris.
Bye.
right, bud. Joe, welcome.
What's up, Joe?
Joe, you there?
What's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and
Yeah,
clear.
you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Loud and clear?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Ty Guy, I think when you were talking about Notre Dame, Michigan, you were saying that they beat Notre Dame. But I think if you go back the last 26 times they played, Notre Dame's won 14 and Michigan's won 12.
Right.
So,
No, I was just saying one of the reasons why Michigan and Notre Dame didn't play back in the teens was Notre Dame beat them so bad Michigan refused to play them for 8 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was just poking a little fun at Michigan. I mean,
yeah. As far as joining the Big Ten for Notre Dame, I think they should. If you're pretending to be an independent, which is what Notre Dame's doing, I'm a Notre Dame fan. And they're pretending to be not conference affiliated because they play 5 games a year against the ACC. So they don't get to participate in a championship game. Like, I don't know what Swarbrick, the AD, was thinking, but when he made that deal, I think he just wanted to make it easier on himself for scheduling, because then he doesn't have to go out and find all these independent games.
Okay, so
I can't
there's
hear
a
you
lot of
guys.
reasons why.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why Notre Dame doesn't have to join the Big Ten, but then it has to decide, does it want to regain its place among the elite? And it's starting to shape up to where there's going to be 2 conferences. And we talked about how this is there's the playoffs, etc. But there's also the playoffs if you want to have that first round bye, because you have to realize that bye is going to be huge. It's a huge advantage to have that bye. If you're just going for money, if you just want to go for a little bit of prestige here or there, or do you want to be like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and make these big runs year in and year out? And yes, they've been there a couple of times, but for some reason, Brian Kelly, which I still haven't figured out, was ever unable to get an elite quarterback, because in order to play, you either need an absolute lights out defense or you need an elite quarterback in order to win national championships these days. And for whatever reason, they had amazing offensive lines, some pretty darn good front sevens, but Brian Kelly could never. I mean, Will Wright, to me alone, that's a reason why you get rid of that guy. If you can't recruit an elite quarterback at Notre Dame, what are you doing? So I think Notre Dame needs to decide, do they just want to have window dressing, hang on to the fact that they're independent, they're not joining anything, or do they want to wake up, smell what's cooking, right? What's going on in college football now, and join an elite conference? I think it's that time. I think that they have time. They have to join this year, but I think they are joining very, very soon.
well, and the other problem with Notre Dame, and I think this is one of the other big pushes, Notre Dame is a great school. NBC likes to give them money, but NBC don't want to give them the money that Notre Dame is asking. Not that Notre Dame's not worth it, but Notre Dame is having trouble. Having an independence now is getting harder because the Big Ten wants to play 9 games, so that only leaves 3 non-conference. So how many of the Big Ten want to play Notre Dame outside of conference? And so Notre Dame is getting stuck with a few less quality opponents, let's say, for a home game, and NBC don't want to pay the $75 million that, so it's finally getting to the point where the money isn't as great at Notre Dame as other schools needing it, but Notre Dame is starting to see that, you know, we want the money the Big Ten can give us. We want, you know, the stability. I think they're finally thinking that maybe the first round bye, if we can win the Big Ten and we don't have to play the first round of the play, you know, I think little stuff is starting to add up for Notre Dame. And I think the writing is finally on the wall that, you know what, let's go ahead and go to the Big Ten, because nowhere else really makes sense for Notre Dame. I mean, they're not coming to the SEC. They don't want to be with us rednecks. They could go to the ACC, but really what good is that? Half the ACC wants to leave. You know, they're not going to the Pac-12. They're not going to the Big 12. The money's in the Big Ten. The academics in the Big Ten. It just makes sense that they're in the Big Ten.
Also, the NBC broadcasts have not been as good the past couple seasons.
Right.
Joe, we've been on for about an hour and 35 minutes. We got another caller right now. I think we're winding down unless we get miraculously to 100 likes, which I don't think we're going to do. I think we're going to take this last caller, guys. You agree? And then we're going to head on out of here.
Go Irish. Thanks for calling.
If we're not having the calls and the likes, there's no point in being on.
Yeah, we're down to last. Joe, thank you so much. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you calling in. Please call back anytime.
See you, Joe.
And then we might possibly be Golden Playbook, the last caller. Wow, we're getting all these Irish calls. You know, what's going on here? Will you say
it's an Irish night
bat signal out to everybody? Welcome, Golden. How you doing?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good. Hey, congratulations to the Irish this week. It's a big week for Notre Dame. We're all excited for you guys.
They win a national championship, then become AAU. How much better could they get?
Oh yeah, no lacrosse.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't have a much better week than that. That's for sure.
Did you guys, Golden? Did you see Pat Cavs was on Pat McAfee's show? He was awesome. He was so funny.
No, I didn't see that.
All right, Golden, you got a question or comment for us?
So I would much rather, because I think us not being in the conference kind of hurts in a way. I think us being in the Big Ten would probably help us a lot more than being independent. But I'd much rather be independent, you know, just because that's our way. That's the way we've always been. So
here, let me ask you a question, Golden, since you're an Irish fan. If you're the president of Notre Dame and you're going to go to the Big Ten, who do you want to take with you? Do you want North Carolina? Do you want Stanford? Do you want Miami? Who would you personally like to see if there's only two teams going to go to the Big Ten and you know Notre Dame's one of it? Who do you want to take with you? Do you want Stanford because that's a rival? Do you want North Carolina for academics and other reasons? Or do you want Miami?
probably Stanford.
Okay.
Just because basically we'll be playing they'll be rivals every week. Michigan again, Michigan State, USC obviously, and then Stanford.
Well,
So I think
Miami,
Stanford would be
they're not as
a good
long
fit.
a rivalry, but the Catholics versus the convicts. I mean, there have been some pretty big games between you guys. You wouldn't want to crack at the Canes?
Yeah. I guess I wouldn't mind that. Because, we had a long history with them too. So,
And actually, it seems like every time Notre Dame played Miami, it was a game. I mean, it was a big game. Both of them were, usually top ranked. I mean, it wasn't two low teams. You guys each played each other when you were both strong, and those were some great games you guys had.
yeah. So I guess you're right. I guess I kind of take that back. Miami would be very interesting. Because we haven't played them since, I think, 2017.
Yeah, let's not talk about that game.
That's the one you don't want to talk about, Will.
Really quickly before you go, Sergeant Pickles, again, thank you so much for your super chats. Thank you, as always, for supporting the show. Hope to see you soon.
Hey, simplify there, Sergeant Pickles.
All right, so we didn't. Oh my God, I was just gonna say we didn't get there. We just got there. Okay, so look, we got 10 more minutes. Unless we get another call, a couple calls lined up. I mean, I can see it in Tony's face. Tony's already saying, "I'm out of here."
We appreciate the likes, though.
All right,
We really
here's
do.
the thing: if you guys, because a couple people want to go longer, right now I'm showing, and Tim, you might know better. I'm showing 89 people in chat, 90 people now. If we can get to 120 likes and 130 people, we'll go another 15 to 30 minutes past Tim's time. But we got to get some phone calls, we got to get some likes, and we got to get more people watching.
I think Tony just said 200 likes. Is that what you said, Tony?
200 likes. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So, yes, first off, all of you, a lot of you guys have been here the entire time for an hour and 30 minutes. We really appreciate you guys being in the chat. I have no idea why you guys aren't calling in. Feel free to call in at any time. I'll drop the link one last time. If we get a call, we're going to hang on for a little bit longer. If we can get that to, what'd you say, 120? That's asking a lot. All right, so we get that thing to 120 because I know there's at least 20 people in there that haven't hit that like button. Yeah. We can stay a little bit longer, but I'm guaranteeing you, Tony is already muted and he's so tired he doesn't even want to talk to us.
Well, and we got people like Texas Buckeye out there. We got Antoine. We got, Dependent. Hey, you guys see. You don't have to show your face. Don't be scared. Just come on.
Texas Buckeye.
Ask a question. Make a comment. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell the other guys, what you think, or who do you think should go to the SEC? Who should go to the Big Ten? Tell us your takes.
My favorite. I like Sandra's suggestion that if you hate USC, you should show that by clicking the like button.
There you go.
I should have started with that one, Sandra.
I know. There we go.
Oh, by the way, Sandra.
Sandra knows.
There you go. By the way, Vince Young's knee was down, so just wanted to let you know that one, Sandra. But thank you for being here.
LW out in the chat. We're not talking about Stanford today.
Golden,
Stanford beat Alabama today 1-0 in College World Series.
Stanford beat Bama today?
Stanford beat Bama today.
Oh, we had a call, but they left.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Golden, you have last comment or question for us?
Oh, you talking to me?
Yeah. Do you have a comment?
Oh, my bad. Sorry. So my point, I want to bring up like Brian Kelly and all that. Like, I just felt like he was like lazy at recruiting most of the time.
He was.
But I also don't think that he was getting support from the administration.
Well,
so I think he was limited.
I mean, he got support from Swarbrick after that 4-8 year.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I just think Freeman is a better fit for us as long as he does good here, Yeah,
and I think he will do better this year.
I think.
Can I say something about in the chat real quick? We got Jason Moose, love you, dude, talking about the great things about Michigan, and John. We all love John about how we pick on Michigan because they ain't us. I wish I was a Michigan fan. It'd be a lot cheaper because I wouldn't have to buy championship shirts all the time. I could still be rocking my 98. So yeah, I am embarrassed not to be you guys. Just kidding, man. I like Michigan, believe it or not. I just like picking on you.
Well, thank you, Golden, for calling in. We appreciate you. We appreciate everyone that called in tonight. Looks like we are beginning to wind down. We're nowhere near that 120, Jeff, and we had a call, but they dropped. So looks like we're getting to that time of the night.
We are under 100 people, Tim, and we did say, if we stall down to where we ain't got 100 people or, we ain't got calls, there's no point on being in here.
All right. But listen, we appreciate everyone who's here. I'm looking at names out there that have been here the entire time. Sandra, LBC, Rob. Thank you guys for being the entire search. We always appreciate you being here. Antoine, David from Arizona has been here for ages. Conundrum. I think
Jason,
we had a lot of guys that
Texas Buckeye.
A lot of guys that have been here. So I'm done. I'm tired. It's Friday night. It's still early-ish on the East Coast, on the West Coast here. I guess it's time for me to go do something, but I know you guys are getting tired over there on the East Coast. So unless anyone wants to add something, I think we're out of here.
Just appreciate the support and getting to 100 likes.
Yeah.
Thank you
guys
Yeah,
guys.
are
no,
awesome.
that
It's
was
fun.
really impressive because we threw this together last minute. There was no, we didn't put this out all day long. And for all of you guys to come and watch the show, the ones who called in, thank you very much. Of course, the super chats was great. And I hope to see everybody on the next show.
I think we'll let Sandra. I was
I
messing
get
with
the
Sandra.
horns
We're going to
again.
Sandra the last word on that one. Thank you guys so much for
Sandra
being
gets
here.
the last word.
I'm going to take that off really quickly though, Sandra, because I don't want that to be like the thumbnail.
Fight on, Sandra. Fight on.
Thank you all for being here, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Roll Tide,
Thanks,
guys.
guys. Go